Hey everybody, Scoutcrafter here again. Welcome back. We have a great program today. We're doing a restoration of a breast drill. And if you've never heard of John S. Fray, which most of us haven't, you're going to be in for a surprise. I just want to make a quick announcement before we start today's show. This Saturday is Jacktown in Bangor, Pennsylvania. And I know it's going to be a hot one, but we'll be there, and we'll be there early. We usually get there about 6 a.m., but we're going to be leaving early, too, because last time we got hit with major traffic, and we don't want to hit that again. So we're going to meet up between 9:30 and 10 at the Big Gazebo. So if anybody's in the area, jacktown.org. I'll leave a description in the a link in the description box, and if you can make it there, I think you'll really enjoy it. It's a great show. Okay, so John S. Fray, he was born in 1833 in England, and by the time he was 17 years old, he worked in a safety fuse plant, and he came to America, settled down in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Now, you know, Bridgeport was the mecca of machining and things like that at that time, and he started making braces. Braces are very similar to a type of drill that we all know, like this one here. And after he became really predominant at making these and manufacturing these, he opened his own company. It was called John S. Fray and Company, and he had a great line of drills, and he did very well. In fact, so well that Stanley in 1920 bought out the company, and many of the drills that you use today were either designed or even made by his company, and you wouldn't even know it because they were renamed. So I picked one up from, and I didn't even know it at the time, but I picked one up from Phil over at Elephant Trunk Flea Market, and let's go take a look at that. I picked this one up from Phil last week. Phil gave me a really nice tool, but this one here I was looking at, and you know, Miller's Falls made a lot of these. Good old Pratt made a lot, but this one here, it's all here. So it's a simple one, and I wanted to show you that these simple ones are so much fun to do. You know, it's a 2-speed. I'll show you how it works later. We're going to take it apart, clean it up, do a quick paint. The funny thing about this thing here, these handles, is that it's an unusual thread. And I'm going to try and measure this thread, but it's a very unusual thread, and it's something that's uncommon. That's why a lot of times it looks like a 3/8/16 or something, but you'll see it's different. Now, using my trusty Starrett number 475 screw pitch gauge, we determined that this is 3/8 of an inch in diameter. Now, to find the pitch, what you do is you take these and you run it across here until you get one that matches without any light showing. And you can see, that's why you want a white background. Well, after moving it around for a little bit, we determined that this looks like a 18. Now, the usual pitch for 3/8 of an inch is either 3/8/16 or 3/8/24. And you can see here, this one fits just perfect. You could see it's a perfect fit. There's no gap, no light in there. So it's a 3/8/18, very unusual pitch, much like Steve's screw for his vise. Okay, I pretty much jinxed myself by saying it's an easy restoration, but what happened was the chuck wouldn't come off all the way because there was a screw holding it into, you see that top of that shaft? It's got a little race there that holds some bearings, ball bearings. What happened was I reached in here to unscrew it, and the ball bearings came out. I don't even know if there's all of them, but this looks like a seam here, and I think this has to come apart because that's the only way I could see to get the inside of this chuck out. And there was a little retaining screw here I took out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to make a holder for this because the knurling is beautiful on these, but will get screwed up if you try and put it in a vise. Let me show you the way I found the holder. Find yourself a piece of scrap wood. Here I'm using a piece of 2x3, 1.5" spade bit. That's about the size of the chuck. I'm going to drill a hole in here, then cut it lengthwise, and then put that in a vise, and that'll be able to hold this while I try and grip this with a strap wrench or something. So let's make that hole and slot it. Here's the setup at the drill press. In order to bore a hole in here and to make it smooth all the way through, we use the spade bit coming down from the top. Now I have the depth stop going down, so it stops right here just as it pierces the wood. Then what I'll do is I'll flip this piece of wood, and there'll be a little bit of a hole here, and then I'll put the spade bit in that little hole and I'll drill it out from the other side, and that'll make a smooth hole. Okay, here we have our holding jig so we don't screw up the knurling. We're going to put this in here like this. You can see it's a kind of a snug fit. We're going to encapsulate it over here with the other side. And there should be a little gap here, which is just what you want, because if it was no gap, it wouldn't really hold it tight. And then we'll put it in the vise and clamp it down. Okay, now that's clamped tightly in the vise. That's solid. Now, the only problem is we don't know if this is a left-handed or right-handed. And we got to put something on here that won't mar this knurling on here. But that's how you hold the bottom of the chuck. Okay, now that your chuck is mounted in your little holding unit, just take a piece of sandpaper, old sandpaper, roll it up like this. This will give you something that'll grip on. Wrap it around the top here, and then we're going to use. Well, I'm going to use a channel lock here, but make sure it's set up. This is the channel lock that has the grip that's around it. Now give a good squeeze because you don't want this slipping and messing up your... Putting your body weight into it. I got some movement and it's not... There we go. There we go. Yep. That's broken. It's a little hot because I put some heat on it before. Okay. Okay, now we're working on the handle here, and this looks to be American walnut. And it's a beautiful handle, but what we're going to do is we're going to take this straight edge razor blade, scrape off all the old patina, any old paint marks, just work over it very lightly. Don't put any nicks or gouges in it. Take it out, and then we'll wipe it down with some oil and bring out that nice walnut color. One of the best tips I ever got was from Mr. Pete 222. Tubal cane, and let me show you what it is. As you get older, you're going to gain some wisdom, but you're also going to lose some hearing and some eyesight. So this particular Optivisor, this one here, you notice the model, it's a DA4. And it's made by a company out of Kansas, Donegan Optical Company, and they've been making these for years, and they're just really a great tool to have. They're so good for any kind of detail work. If you don't have one of these, they're not cheap, but they're well worth the money. Okay, using the Optivisor, I was able to determine where on this gear the pin is. Now, you can see here, it's a little slightly larger hole here than it is on the other side. You see the other side? It's a slightly smaller hole. And another good thing to have if you don't have any dental picks, because you'd never see this if you didn't dig around and pull all that grease and dried wood. Remember, this was used as a drill. So, but you see one hole, this hole is smaller than the hole on the corresponding other side, the opposite side. So what that tells me, it's probably a tapered pin, which means it's driven in from the large side, but to drive it out, you got to go from the small side and punch it out. To knock out the tapered pin, just take your pin punch, place it into the smaller hole, because remember, it's going to come out the big hole, and make sure the gear is resting on something, something preferably that won't damage the gear. Here I got a piece of plywood, and then you're going to tap it out with a brass hammer, and you will feel it starting to give. And there it is. It's starting to give, and you can feel it pushing out the other side. Okay, we'll turn this around, and there you can see the pin coming out. Do you see that? See that pin coming out there? Now you're going to have to get a pliers and pull it out the rest of the way, or punch it up, but make sure you don't lose that. And it's got to go in the same way it came out, in the same hole. Now the pin is out, but this is not budging. It's not coming out. It's free spinning, but it's not coming out because that's been on there for years. So I'm going to show you what we're going to do. We're going to use like a slap hammer technique, and what we're going to do is heat up the gear, which will expand it a little bit, put the bottom of that chuck back on here, and use it to slap this out. Okay, we screwed the bottom plate of the chuck on here. Now we're going to heat up just the gear, hoping to expand it a little bit, and then we're going to use the side of the chuck here and just tap this so that it pulls out, and hopefully that'll work. Okay, we got this to separate. You see it's separating a little bit? Now, the only problem is, you see that? More bearings, more ball bearings in here. And that can be a problem. We got to make sure that we catch those bearings, because if they get lost, you know, we're going to be in trouble. So you see how many, we didn't lose any because it's not wide enough yet. But what we'll do is we're going to try and pry this up slowly and get those bearings out before, so we don't lose them. So we get those bearings to contend. Okay, we got it out. It took over an hour to do, and I mangled this this is above the race. I mangled that, so I got to make a new one of these. And I put some scratches and dings in here, and I could fix that, but you shouldn't have to, you know. And my point is that if you don't have to take things apart, I didn't have to take it apart, but you know, I'm just trying to do, I always try and do a little bit over the top, but for the videos. But in my other ones I never did. If it don't have to come apart, don't take it apart. There's no reason for it, and you know, it just creates extra work for you. But now that we got here, let's on this glass bubble vial. When they put this in, they put it in with some kind of like a hardening caulking, and it's meant to harden up and stay there. It holds the vial in and keeps it a level. You can see, so don't mess with that. Don't take it out. It's set there from the factory. The plate will cover it up. Just clean all around it, and then you can paint the handle. And you can see this had some kind of like Japanning on there, and we're gonna clean it up and paint it. Okay, we put this into the lathe. Look what we did. Look what I did. I really buggered that up, huh? Look at that. Oh, that was me trying to pry it apart because it was on there for so long and it shouldn't have come apart. I shouldn't have took it apart, but I did, and I got to deal with the consequences. So I'm going to straighten this down. But what I really did is there was a washer here that went over the race. Look at what I did to that. Sweet Jesus. Did I bugger that up? But I knew I was doing it when I said I'll just make another one. And I have one here. Now, since I'm going to take a skim coat off of here, I have a thicker washer here, and this is a hardened wash. This will look nice in there, and I'll take this down to size, and just I got to open up the hole just a little bit, and let's get to doing that. Okay, it's 2:30 a.m. I am done for tonight. Anyway, you know, it's amazing that everything here is the drill. You know, it's not complicated and there's not that many parts, but you know, it's always funny how rust and patina hide damage. You know, like once you get rid of the rust and the patina, look at this. Look, the pitting. That's some deep pitting in there, and got some deep pitting in almost all the parts. Thank God the gears are all right, not chipped or anything. The make of this drill is over here, and you can see it says, I don't know if that's Fray, but it's number 5. You know, it's a lot easier to see sometimes from when I'm sitting there, but I could see it says Stanley, and so we're gonna. I noticed some differences when I was taking it apart. There were some differences like this locking tab. We'll explain later, but took all of it down to, you know, bare metal more or less, and now we're going to take it tomorrow to the sander. Fixed up this piece nice. You know, no more dings, no more dents or anything. So I repaired what I goofed, what I buggered up. And that's it. So we'll be back. Okay, we're going to start on the chuck. You see we relieved this little area here, so it looks nice. Knurls are pretty good, except there was a little bit of damage, not from me, but from before here. Again, well, I guess it was maybe laying in water, and you could see that here. You see the pitting? We're going to have to take care of that. It's pitting all around the chuck, so let's do that. Okay, here we are, midnight. It's actually Wednesday, the day I'm going to hopefully have this done. I still got a few things to do. Got to polish the ball bearings and things like that, but all the painting is done. I always want to say this, back from powder coating, even though we didn't powder coat it, but I always want to say that. But anyway, it came out real good, didn't it? Let's get it together and see how she runs. Okay, these are the other minor components, the ball bearings, things like that we're going over. Now, this is something I learned from the Active Atom channel, Lance and Patrick, great guys over there, and they teach you all these little tips and tricks on how to, you know, deal with small parts, and this really helps out. Okay, now when we're going over the small hardware, you see here, you see that screw looks just a little bit chowdered up, you know, because it's brass, it's soft, so it gets, you know, it'll twist out or whatever. But you see how it looks, and you know, it don't look too good. So what you do is you chuck that into your drill. Once you have the screw chucked up into your cordless drill, you take it over to the belt sander, and then you just follow the contour over here, and that'll dress up the top of your screw. Then while it's still in the chuck of the drill, you take it over to the buffer and you do the same thing, and we'll see what it looks like when we're done. Now I would say that's a bit of an improvement, right? Looks a little better. Now you know my favorite part. Remember what this drill looked like before we started. And we are calling this project done. Wow, this one really came out nice. Now, I have to tell you, we went over every aspect of this drill from top to bottom, and it really came out really nice. And I did it in a candy apple red, just like we did the vise last time. And this did a black enamel, and did the walnut handles over in the chuck, and it's just a beautiful drill. And it works phenomenal. And let me show you how it works. See, this was you could see here the 3 different holes. That's for added, they call these like the mini locomotive of hand drills, because they give you so much torque. Obviously, when you move that out, the further out you are, the more leverage you got. And it's a 2-speed drill. Let me show you how these 2-speed drills worked. It was pretty ingenious. You could see here, the smaller gear gave you more torque, but less RPMs. And you could see if I put the larger ring gear to engage this, it would give you higher RPM. So right now, if you look at the top, we have it engaged with the small gear. You see how that's engaged in that gear, and watch how fast that's turning. You could see by you know, revolutions how fast the chuck is turning. Now all I have to do is give this a half a turn like this to the left, and then pull out this whole assembly here, and then move it down to the next one, and it engages the outside ring gear. Then close it up like this. Now watch how fast it turns. You could see it's almost at least 3 times the speed. Now what's interesting about the way this is designed is, you know, a lot of them had the levels that were incorporated, and you can see this one is no exception. It's got the built-in level. It has oil holes here that you could oil, and but this one's different because it has a little locking mechanism. To engage the locking mechanism, all you do is you just slipped it forward like this, and it would slip in between the cogs of the gear, and that would lock it for either transport or anything like that. When you wanted to use it, you would just pull it back like this, and it was back in service. And you know, these were meant to last for generations. Now, these are called breast drills because you can see here this back plate was meant to rest up against your chest as you applied pressure and used it for whatever you had to use it for. The level would allow you to engage the drill bit in a level fashion going into a beam or whatever you had to do. Again, what made the Fray models a little bit more expensive and interesting is that they were ball bearings in here, ball bearings in the chuck, and it was a well-made brace, you know, or a breast drill. And again, they used American walnut on the handles, and you know, a little brass, and it's just a well-made drill. So in closing, I hope you enjoyed this restoration. I also hope to see you at Jacktown this Saturday, the 20th, and I appreciate you tuning in. Hope you have a nice day. Take care now. Bye-bye.